If we need to improve our educational system quickly to be more competitive in the world, does the federal government need to exercise different influence than it has historically over educational standards? If so, in what ways? And if not, how do you encourage state to meet national goals to move us forward? Governor Romney?
Hey, Carolyn, these are 60-second answers, right?
Yes.
Okay, let's make sure, because time's going pretty quick here. Education's an important topic, and the president was right to fight for No Child Left Behind, because we allow states now to test our kids and see how well they're doing, particularly in math and English. We've made the same effort in our state, actually before No Child Left Behind was passed. We test our kids, we have high standards. We teach them in English, English immersion. We say to be successful in America, you got to speak the language of America. We also put in place incentives for kids to do well. For those that take the graduation exam, which you have to take to get out of high school, we say that you're going to get, if you score in the top 25% of the test, a 4-year tuition-free scholarship to a Massachusetts institution of higher learning. And the federal government insists on those tests and those standards, and it's key. And let me continue. I think we also have to have higher pay for better teachers. And people who are not good teachers ought to find a different career. And finally, we need more parental involvement. And we've tested our kids in Massachusetts, along with all the other kids in the nation. 50 states get tested every 2 years in English and math in 4th and 8th grade. My 8th graders came out #1 in English. They came out #1 in math. My 4th graders, #1 in English, #1 in math. First time in history, one state, #1 in all 4 measures. School choice, better pay for better teachers, high standards, scholarships for the best kids, English immersion. These principles work.
Governor Huckabee?
First of all, the whole role of education is a state issue. It's not really a federal issue. And the worst thing that we can do is to shift more burden, more responsibility, more authority to the federal government when more of it needs to go to the states. But I think the federal government can play a pivotal role, and primarily in helping to make sure that the best practices that are working in the states are shared with states who are struggling. Let me give you a couple of examples of what has to happen in all the states. And the federal government can at least share the data and the information. One, personalize the learning for the student. We have 6,000 kids every day drop out of this country, and they don't drop out because they're dumb. They drop out because they're bored to death. They're in a 19th century education system in a 21st century world. If we really are serious, then first of all, we make sure that we build a curriculum around their interest rather than just push them into something they don't care. Second thing, unleash weapons of mass instruction. I'm a passionate, ardent supporter of having music and art in every school for every student at every grade level.
Time.
Because, well, let me just make sure you understand why. It's not frivolous. It's because if we don't develop the right side of the brain with the same level of attention as we do the left, which is the logical side, we end up with an unbalanced, bored student, which is exactly what we've done, and we're dropping students out of our system because of it.
Congressman Paul, what's the biggest obstacle standing in the way of improving education?
Do I have to raise my hand to get a question? I'd like to address that question.
I'm getting to you.
No, you're not. You haven't in several go-rounds, so I have to make an issue out of it. I would like to address the question of education.
Go ahead.
I don't wish it to pass
on. Go ahead, please. You have 30 seconds.
They had a minute. Why do I get 30 seconds? You see, your unfairness is now becoming so apparent that the voters in Iowa must understand there's a reason for it. And the reason for it is what I'm about to say. Governor Huckabee just addressed the question of education. He has stood before values voters and moral conservatives, claiming that he is their spokesman. You know the major problem in American education today? We allowed the judges to drive God out of our schools. We allowed the moral foundation of this republic, which is that we are created equal and endowed by our Creator, not by our Constitution or our leaders, with our rights. If we don't teach our children that heritage and the moral culture that goes along with it, we cannot remain free. They will not be disciplined to learn science, to learn math, to learn history, to learn anything. And they don't want to talk about this, except when they're squabbling about their own personal faith and forgetting that we have a national creed. And that national creed needs to be taught to our children so that whether they are scientists or businessmen or lawyers, they will stand on the solid ground of a moral education that gives them the discipline they need to serve the right, to exercise their freedom with dignity, and to defend justice because they understand it is our heritage.